everybody to the first and hopefully not the last Healthy Poor Symposium for exploring mental health in the hospitality industry. My name is Louise Green. I am a licensed professional counselor as well as a drinks professional, former hospitality professional. I currently work as the founder for Healthy Pour and also for Winebow as the regional spirit specialist in the Midwest. So I have very bizarre intersecting careers that I have kind of managed to put together in Healthy Pour. I am a therapist, DJ, who is going to introduce himself later as therapist, but this is not therapy. This is a panel discussion. This is elements of psychoeducation. That being said, this topic is, I think, especially emotional, because now we're talking about relationships, our friends, our closest relationships. And so I want you all who are tuning in to honor yourself as you're taking this information in as we're talking about this. And if you are starting to feel feelings, and your feelings are normal, I will always say that your feelings are your friends and they're forever normal. If they start to become unmanageable, there are some resources in the chat there for you. And there are resources there for in the United States and Canada, as well as the UK, if for some reason you're still awake in the UK. And if you are, that's cool. Hey, welcome, whatever. But please utilize those resources if you need them. Do not feel bad about tapping out. It might be a good idea to keep notes on things that you're feeling throughout this, kind of what triggered them, so that you can process them later, either on your own or with somebody else. But yeah, that being said, let's introduce ourselves. Let's start with the other redhead, Laura.
Oh, hey, that's me. I love getting to see you and do this with you 2 days in a row in different capacities.
Yes.
My name is Laura Kelton. I am one of the founders and right now the executive director for Support Staff, or the Instagram handle is probably better known as Please Hustle Responsibly. I've been in the bar and restaurant industry for a little over 10 years and am currently not working as an active bartender or manager or doing any of those positions, just running support staff.
Great, thank you. Joanna.
What's up? My name is Joanna Carpenter. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am a Chinese American bartender, educator, actor, organizer. Been in hospitality for what year are we in? We're in 2020. How could I forget?
I don't know.
Coming up on 17 years now in hospitality. And I am the co-founder of 86 The Barrier.
Can you explain what 86 The Barrier is?
Yeah, so it's a grassroots language organization that was founded by myself and Cameron Shaw, our beloved Cameron Shaw. And our mission statement is to decolonize language in hospitality so that everybody, regardless of their socioeconomic, sociopolitical, immigration status, has an equal chance at professional and financial safety and success.
Love it. Great. So happy to have you. Ariel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ariel. I am a chef by trade, and I'm the co-founder of Not 9 to 5, which is a not-for-profit based out of Canada, aimed at empowering workers, providing education and connecting them to resources that are so desperately needed, and breaking down the stigma that is so prevalent in our industry around mental health and substance use.
Awesome. I'll also add to your introduction that Not 9 to 5 has created a mental health first aid that is hospitality specific. And it's amazing. It's very, very cool. I've cried like 6 times about it just because I'm so happy it exists. But really, really, yeah, all y'all, man, this is gonna be so good. DJ.
Yeah, no pressure, guy. You guys are awesome. All right. My name is DJ Watson. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I work in Chicago, Illinois. I work with individuals, couples, families, bring in your partner, bring in your horrible kids, bring in your parents. Sometimes it's co-work or like co-business owner relationships, all of that fun stuff. So anxiety, depression, all of those things that go with, dealing with people, I'm all about. And then also social justice and social cultural stressors. So LGBTQ clients, trans, cross-cultural marriages. I have a couple couples who I meet with because like one person's from one ethnicity and one person's from the other, and they're trying to, like make sure they work through barriers like that. And I'm also the education director for support.
Mhm. I always like to share that DJ and I did our clinical internship together. And back in the day, we were both bartending and doing our clinical internship for unpaid internship.
Yes, unpaid interns. We were unpaid interns doing counseling and bartending and going to school. So it was a good time.
And here we are now, dismantling all of it. Yes. Okay, so let's get at it. I was watching The Office, what is time? 5-6 months ago, because I had never seen it, but there was a part.
Can I just pause and say this is my favorite panel intro ever? I was watching Office. I'm sorry. I know I'm totally off track. I know it's that time of the afternoon, but I love it. I'm sorry to throw us all off. Continue with where you were going, but I just wanted to know.
No, but really, I was watching The Office, and it was right when, I can't remember what her name is, but Toby went to Mexico or whatever, and the new HR generalist came in, and Michael Scott fell in love with her immediately and all of that stuff. And they go to lunch, and he's like, "Well, you'll get to know our little family." And she goes, "This is not a family. This is work." And holy moly, you better believe I paused it, rewound it, got my phone, and held it up to the screen and recorded it, because that is something that has just made me I just think it's a huge issue. I think it's a massive disservice to people. I think it's a massive disservice to our industry. I love feeling close to people. I think we all want to feel close to people, but the use of family in a workspace is an issue. And that is what we are here to talk about. So, I mean, where do we even begin? I mentioned in the last, oh my God, it's so dark in here that I can't even see it. In the last webinar, that on my windows, because I use a dry erase marker to write notes on my windows when I think about something so that I can come back to it. I wrote, this was in April or May, I wrote considerations to explore loneliness, boundaries, inauthentic relationships, guides of closeness, and shared trauma. Which I think all harkens back to, in a little bow, the use of family. So those are some things that I think that we should talk about, and I think that there are others. But yeah, I guess, LK, do you want to get started on this? The use of family and relationships, and what does that? You've worked quite a few roles, from bartender to buyer to distributor, right? Were you a supplier?
Yeah,
I think you were a supplier. Were you?
Yeah, because I worked as a brand ambassador. So, but over, I guess when I was with Altamar and the Bon Vivants, it was just Tequila Ocho. But yeah, no, I've kind of worked in a lot of those different realms. It's really interesting because, we've been promoting this a lot. And whenever I started promoting that this was going to be a subject we spoke on, this was the thing that it really resounded with people. And I think it's because people sometimes they have a hard time pinpointing that this is something they have an issue with until someone else paints it in this light. Because I know for me, most recently, before COVID hit, we had opened Mundano, and that was the first time that I had worked in a bar or restaurant space or in any position whatsoever, and had other leaders say, when we were in the middle of training with the staff, very specifically, we are not going to be family. We are not going to use that term. It's unhealthy. And it was really, really cool to see, because over the course of my career, I've worked at, everything from a hospitality group that has, several properties that it manages, to a very small chef-owned and operated restaurant. Like you said, working with in sales, I think is probably when relationships, I could feel and see that my relationships are most heavily abused in terms of family and people that were closest to me, because it would be a matter of, my partner, was running a very large outlet at that time. And I very specifically remember other sales reps and my direct boss, who I just, adored, coming to me and saying, hey, so can you get me a meeting with him now that he's like taken over that position? And I was like, hard stop. No way. We are not bringing him into this working relationship. Do not think that we're going to cross that boundary ever. And there were times that I did cross that boundary, not with him, but with other people that I care about in my life, with, my current business partners, with friends. It's a lot of, favor asking, and it's not fun. But I would say that is when I felt like most outright people like just directly asked those things, knowing they were crossing a boundary. Before that, a lot of it is stuff that honestly, just now I'm starting to really kind of like unpack and think about how much incredible manipulation and like power holds were held over those kinds of relationships. People that, we treat you like family, you are our family. Holding things over your head like bribes, like you would a family member, like just like crazy little things that you're like, what? I can't believe that you would use that in a professional setting. So yeah, I do think, working for, in the world of a distributor, that was definitely abused. And then being a buyer, people coming in that work for brands, definitely taking advantage of personal relationships. And that's not everyone. I think that, I know we'll talk later about those kind of like healthy boundaries that you set. But I would say, there's like different tiers, and working like within a bar and restaurant, it was very much the manipulation side of it. As a buyer, you often feel very used, even with your personal relationships. And then working in sales, it was just very blatant and outright like, hey, so congratulations on working this hard in your career to make all these friends. Now we want to use that to our advantage. And you're like, okay, but what about me after the fact? Yeah. Like what happens then?
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point, especially at the end. What about me after the fact? But also like, what about me? It diminishes the person down to, and it devalues that person, and it overvalues their relationships over anything. And in the attempt to get a sale, to sell poison in a bottle, right, in a box, like, don't get me wrong, I love that poison in a bottle in a box. I think it's delicious. It also pays my salary, you know what I mean? But it is they're as someone who works for a distributor, in sales, there has to be a boundary. Otherwise, I mean, like we were talking about in the last seminar, our identities are just absolutely negated, Yeah. I see you nodding a whole bunch, Joanna. I was hoping maybe you would chime in a little bit.
Oh my God. Because I've been in all those positions too. I spent almost 4 years with a small brand building the New York market. I have consulted with a large brand, a small brand, like all these things. And Laura, everything you said just really hit home. Because my last big thing that I did outside of consulting in the industry was running a program that I built from the ground up. And I remember sitting alone at my bar after a very long day, wondering if anybody actually gave a shit about the work that I was doing and what I was creating and why. Because my program was very, very focused on, stocking my back bar and building programming around brands that were operated in some way by female identifying humans and minorities. And I just felt so constantly just run over. And as there were a lot of mistakes that I made running that program. And there were a lot of ways that I failed running that program. And there were a lot of ways that I got overwhelmed, but I was so proud of what I was able to create. And I remember just like sitting there with a glass of wine and being like, I am so alone, because like, A, I'm working 80 hours a week, for very toxic people. And B, who, a lot of the relationships that I had that were coming in the door, I had built up over my years at Brooklyn Gin. And, the work that I did at Brooklyn Gin, I was so proud of, because I am a relationships human. I'm a people person until I'm not, and then I go home. But it was constantly just an ongoing like carousel style evolution of figuring out who was giving you lip service and who actually cared about you. And the ratio, like the percentage of people giving you lip service and just like blowing smoke up your ass for whatever reason, to make a sale or otherwise, to the people who actually care about you as a human was like 97% to 3%. And for all that we talk about this community as a family, and I do think there's a difference between family and community, and that distinction needs to be made. For all that we talk about this industry as a family, I'm glad that we're talking about this, because I've called bullshit on that for years. We're not a family. We emotionally kick the shit out of each other, and we use each other, and we manipulate each other, and we pressure each other to drink and do drugs, and like,
I don't know what family you come from.
very similar family, if I'm being honest. Like, geez.
But you're right. You are right though. It is still business.
It's business, and that's fine. But like, what are we doing to each other by not just going, hey, we have a working relationship. I'm not going to pretend that we're like buddies, but there's a quid pro quo at stake here. Let's talk frankly about it. Nobody talks frankly in this industry unless it's some sort of dick on the table bluster. It's always this kind of veiled, well, you know what I'm talking about, like smile and a nod, like mafia, distributor shit. And it's really sad, because think of what we could accomplish as a community if we just take the gloves off and be real. So.
Both of what you're saying obviously really resonates with me, because I've been a buyer, and I've been, the bartender, I've been a supplier, I'm a distributor, all of those pieces. But I remember two things here. I remember when I was in my last bar job before I moved to Winebow, and I was finishing my master's degree to be a therapist, and there was someone from another distributor who came in, and I wasn't there, but I got them a reservation, something. Anyway, it was reported back to me from someone who I worked with at the time that they were kind of throwing a fit, and they were using the words like, what are we even doing here? She's not even going to be in the industry anymore. We're wasting our time. And these were people who were very much presenting themselves as my friends, like actual friends, you know what I mean? Who looked out for me. And that was a really painful thing to experience, and I had this moment of like, oh my, it's part of my language, but I was just like, oh my God, everything's fucked. Everything is fucked. And I like the veil came off, and I started to see it. And then I was like, oh my God, none of these people are my friends. But I thought so deep down in my bones that I was building these relationships. And now I realize that, through conversations with people, and of course through my like training and studies and stuff like that, it's a shared trauma that we feel close to people, because the industry is a traumatic place to exist in, and the same is true. And Joanna, I'm glad you're here too, because I think the same is true. There's through lines here with theater.
Oh God, yeah.
Acting and music. I mean, there's a lot of overlap there too. But the other thing that I was going to bring up is when I started as a distributor, then because of that experience, I was very clear that I was like, I am putting up, I didn't call them boundaries at the time, but I was just like, I am not going to manipulate that. I'm not going to utilize that. I was sitting at a bar in Milwaukee, and I told this guy he's a new buyer. And I was like, my name is Laura. I'm the spirit specialist for Winebow. I'm here to help you. And then I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was like the rum agricole cocktail that he served me, but I was like, I'm going to be really honest with you right now. I'm not your friend. I was like, as you buy, be mindful of that. If people come and present themselves as friends, it's not that you can't build friendships in this industry, because you most certainly can. And you can build very fruitful relationships that are rewarding and gratifying and wonderful. But someone comes and sits at your bar and says, hey, friend, and you're not their friend, they're not your friend. Be very, very wary of that. Boundaries.
It's also exponentially harder for women, because not only do we have to do the same work, we have to walk that line of literal physical safety. Yes. The amount of times I have had menu placement or a trip or something like that held over my head by a man, where I felt obligated to, because we're friends, because I felt obligated to fulfill something, to oblige something, to purchase something. There is an element of physical and emotional safety that's a little like plus, like a little tax and tip for female identifying humans in the industry that also needs to be taken into account, because part of these warped familial structures is rape culture woven in. I said it. It's very early on. I said it.
No, that's okay. I mean, honestly, I've been at this for like what feels like 12 hours now. So like,
You're like, we're in it. We're already in it.
I'm all the way in it. So I want to shift a little bit, because I think talking about like the brand relationship with the buyer, with the distributor and stuff, is a extension of something else that's happening, and I want to bring up the vibe of how everybody is a friend beyond brand. So you have your brand / distributor piece that might exploit the relationships. I kind of want to shift a little bit into the more the less I can't think of the word right now, but the the quiet piece of everyone's a friend.
Yeah.
But if everyone's a friend, it's like if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. If everyone's a friend, who is your friend? You know, and Ariel, I want to see if maybe there's something like I've never worked in a kitchen as much as I've really wanted to like make dumplings all day, like, you know, or something like that.
I want to do that too.
Let's go. Let's go.
So much of what everyone is saying really hits a note with me, because it's the same but different, right? Like it's very similar constructs. And I think that, you know, one of the themes is like this idea of managing through guilt, where it's like, you know, you are working for me, but you're not just working for me. You're my best friend. And this is what best friends should do for each other. And it's just like, yeah, right? it's such
the way you put that. Ooh.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that then there's the other part to it, which really, for me, hits a note, is like, so who's the favorite child? And, you know, if this is a family, who's the favorite child? Because there's always a favorite child. And what are they getting away with that the other family members aren't getting away with? And so, is
everyone feeling this in their stomach?
Oh, the hard hits over here. Oh my God, you're so right.
I just want to acknowledge.
Yeah, honestly, I just feel like no matter how you look at it, you know, I think the shift needs to be around management styles and overall normalizing it, because this whole perception of the family has been way too normalized for us, right? And so like going into a vibe and it's like, oh, I'm a new hire, whatever, and it's like, oh, everyone's cool here. Yeah, we all do this and we all do that. But what happens if you don't want to? And like now you're the odd one out, and so what? So, you know, I think there's a lot there. I think that, you know, for me, a big part of this is the shift that really needs to happen away from this mentality.
Yeah. I mean, it has to shift. And I think it has to shift not just for people's personal well-beings, but also for, I don't know if I pluraled that right, but whatever, but also for the longevity of our industry in general, right? Like, we have to adopt a new way to look at professionalism and what professionalism looks like. This certainly is a business of relationships, and hospitality is inherently relationship based and emotionally driven and stuff, but we just can't be friends with everybody and have our careers rely on a false, empty friendship. And like, DJ, I'm gonna throw it at you. Like, what's the consequence? I mean, I think I know it, but I want to hear you say it. Like, what's the consequence when every relationship in your life most of the relationships in your life are empty and without substance, but you think, sorry, I'm getting dark here, but like,
don't worry, I got you. Don't worry.
Can you pull me out of the darkness?
It just like hits to be like Obama is what I do.
Can you please?
We'll see. I've definitely oversold it now. So yeah, I think, again, like one of the things that is really important for me, and every culture, race, country, religion, ethnicity does it different, but is finding that balance within yourself and like finding who you are authentically, right? Often talk to my clients about like mentally what's going on in my head, what's my thoughts, Emotionally, right, where my feelings are at, I can slam a door in somebody's face and feel really happy about that and still be really sad and angry about what they did, right? So I can hold a bunch of emotions at once. My physical body, especially in the US, we ignore that, especially in the industry, right? Have I eaten? Have I drinking? Have I drunk? Like water, not just not just like that alcohol shot that we took when the bartender called us over in the middle of the craziness, right? Am I sore? Am I achy? Right? What is my body telling me? Right? Are my feet hurting all the time? Right? Can I barely stay awake? And then the spiritual piece, which doesn't have to be about religion at all, but is about connection, right? And it's for me, it's two pieces in there, and it's does this thing help me feel more connected with the people, the places, and the things that are important to me, right? And or does it feel right in the grand scheme of things, right? And also the things I can't control. I always joke and say, there's stars in the sky. And whether you think God, Buddha, Allah, chaos theory, physics, science, nature, whatever put them there, the Big Bang, I did not put them there. I cannot control them. They are bigger than me, right? And in the grand scheme of things, even as I'm meeting like hiccups and roadblocks, am I feeling like I'm in the right place and in the right path? Right? And I think, just humans, just physiologically as beings, we're pack animals, and we use other people to help us kind of negotiate those pieces and those terrains, right? We all have that who we think is our best selves, right? And then we have what my mom thinks is my best self, and what my partner thinks is my best self, what my boss thinks is my best self. Might not care at all outside of work, right? Joanna was speaking earlier, right? What is my best self projected as a person of color, or as a woman, or as trans, or as queer, right? We talk about also the physical safety in bars, right? I know lots of friends who I have who are like LGBTQ identifying, right? There's safety issues there too, right? With people and how they're going to be treated, and how they, the same horrible stuff that I've had to put up with and hear people call me, right? They've had to listen to also, right? And so I think, having good relationships helps you keep a balance in those parts of yourself, right? If my you know if only thing that I'm worried about is work, right, and I'm not taking care of my body, or my soul, or my spirit, or feeling connected to friends or family, right, if I'm not taking care of my emotions, then what tends to happen is that's going to be the place where I'm going to lean to for support, right? So again, as we talked about, right, all of a sudden, if work's the only thing that's important to me, who cares what my mom's talking about that vacation, or grandma's birthday, right? All of a sudden I start focusing all of my relationships towards there, right? And again, I'm missing people with other perspectives, with other balance. I think the thing that is, I mentioned this in the last session, is great about the industry is all the freedom it allows us, right? It really allows you to be whoever you want to be. Tattoos, queer, straight, crazy hair, no hair, you can work at the Kit Kat Club, or you can work at Grow and the Goat, right? Like you can really find places to be whoever you want to be, which I think is really beautiful. But also those boundaries that we talk about, right? And what happens when you get a bunch of like-minded people together, people who are not having a bunch of perspective, right? We do create those communities, because they definitely are communities or teams, right? But maybe the focus all of a sudden is on work, because that's the thing we all share, and that's the thing that makes us feel good. So again, it's all about what have you done for me lately at work, or who's the favorite child, or those type of things, right? And it just skews us to more imbalance in our life, and drags us out of that perspective of I joke with clients. I talk to my clients who have anxiety, and I'm like, yeah, I know what that's like. It's a server dream. You wake up and realize, oh my God, I've been take the sauce to 32, right? Like I know exactly what that's like, right? And how do I have some balance in my life, right? Where I'm not waking up, oh my God, I didn't take the sauce to 32, and that's the only thing that's, I have, my plans, or my partner, or those other things that give me value outside of my work. Because when all of my values connect to my work, it's not always, some places are really great, but not everywhere is great. Not everybody's gonna be great, right? It really kind of pull you out of balance and perspective of like, what are those important things? And then it's just the feedback loop, because you're spending more time at work and less time on those other things. So so I don't know if I answered your question on that.
No, you did. And yeah, and like a lot comes to mind. I the first thing I thought about was I was like, I'm gonna Brene Brown all y'all real quick and talk about like there is no vulnerability without boundaries, and I want to come back to that. But I'm thinking also while I listen to you about skills and building skills and how, especially when people start, let's say like my second hospitality job was as a busser at the American Girl Place in Chicago. So like I had the apron and like all this stuff, and whatever, that was fine. But if you are coming up from a developmental standpoint in an industry that already frankly encourages empty relationships and exploits relationships, where do you build the skills? And Joanna, this is the same for theater, this is the same for music, right? How I guess what I'm coming around to, and it's like taking me a hot minute, but I think that we have an industry on our hands. We have an entire workforce on our hands that doesn't necessarily have the skills to build intimate relationships right now. And that intimacy and that vulnerability can be incredibly scary. And so, I mean, like we were talking about in the last one, I think sometimes people stay in this industry so that they can keep subscribing to behaviors that this industry allows. I think sometimes people foster a workplace and a community vibe so that they don't have to feel intimacy, so they don't have to feel closeness. And I think that there's I think that sort of oversharing trauma bond that happens, like when you're behind the bar and it's slow and you just start telling someone your life story, like that, that oversharing trauma piece, right? The other side of that is an inability to foster closeness. It's almost like without those boundaries, just vulnerability just goes wild, and then we're just so open to harm, exploitation, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just even real quick, just to
yeah.
touch on that piece of what you're saying, right? Of that inherently something about being a service professional is has some manipulation built into the industry. Like I used to work for like AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, right? Like there is something in the industry that says like, when you come in, I'm my best self and everything is great, right? That fosters me to not necessarily be open, honest, and vulnerable, but to make, to do the emotional labor and baggage in this relationship, right? To fix any problem that you have, right? Or do that is not, does not allow you to be your full, self in a three-dimensional way. And I think, yeah, again, it makes sense that, again, not just with the customer, right, but with the pay scale. There's very few places that can pay you less than minimum wage and get away with that in America and not cover all of this stuff, right? With the, again, like we talked about the expansion scale, right? That if I want to move up to a certain job, I have to take less money to be a supervisor now, right? That there's some pieces in this that are set up to kind of manipulate people, and it's like a currency that is available, right? The person who can turn it on at the bar or even in the kitchen, right? Even if you're not a people person, you can turn it on in the kitchen and smile, and the head chef likes you, and you're the favorite kid, right? That you get some bonus points for that. And I think then there's a lot of, again, looking for some genuineness, right? I spent 5 hours fake smiling at people, right? I just want to feel connected with people, and like I said, maybe that shared trauma or that experience to connect, right, then fosters relationships that maybe built on one piece of wanting some of that connection, but maybe not the other piece of doing the background work to see if this is a safe person. Sorry, it was supposed to be short.
No. That last thing you said though about without doing the background work of seeing if this is a safe person. I mean, that is a relational skill that, I don't know, I take that back. I don't think that's a relational skill. That's like a survival. Like I mean, hold on. I'm sorting something out with my dome. I think like, that sort of wariness that we put up around people, like that stranger danger is, when we're kids, we don't have it, we develop it, right? And then we have to sometimes work to break it down. I keep coming back to, building a skill set around interpersonal behavior, interpersonal relationships, that I think maybe we're just all so starved for connection that we just totally bypass that piece of, is this a safe person?
That, and if I can say, I think that also we've like talked to the fact of like the trauma bonding part of all of this, and how I think readily available that is as a means of connection between people in this industry. So it might, you bypass stranger danger because you're like, oh, you're like me, you get it. You understand, you've been through it. Like, talking about like how to develop those skills. Sometimes it's just falling on your face enough. Like, it doesn't have to be hitting rock bottom, but sometimes it's just making that mistake enough. It's either that or self-awareness, I feel like, because oftentimes you might realize that a certain relationship is toxic, work relationship, and you want to get out of it, but you just end up shifting into another one of those situations because of either manipulation or just an immediate trauma bond. That's, I know from personal experience, something that has happened to me in moving to Chicago. I had worked at a place for 6 years and learned everything I knew about bars and restaurants up to that point, and worked my way up to being, a front of house manager. And then all of a sudden I was managing all of my friends, and they don't want to be my friend anymore. And then I went and participated in, an apprentice program that was very much built on trauma bonding. And it was like, okay, cool. Well, I don't need that family anymore because I have another one. And let me tell you, that didn't last either.
Yeah.
So it's, I think that you're right. Like, sometimes there's just the means of stranger danger is erased because people are like, okay, cool. Well, you're in my industry, so you obviously understand exactly what I'm going through too. And you just immediately dive into a full on, what you think is a fulfilling emotional relationship. And it's not, it's just empty.
I want to say too that, for folks who are watching this, I don't want our industry to like shift to a place that we're so untrusting that we don't let anybody in, because I don't think that's the answer either. I think, but that's where boundaries really come in. That's where emotional intelligence comes in. That's where, taking the time to understand ourselves and our needs and what we need from relationships. Maybe, LK, you mentioned patterns, right? Like, we keep repeating patterns until we learn to not repeat patterns. Like, we keep repeating patterns for reasons, right? And until we learn, we're going to continue, be it a relationship, be it a behavior, whatever, so I don't want to instill mistrust in people who are watching this. But what I want y'all to take away from this is that it's important to explore boundaries, personal boundaries. It's important to explore what we need out of relationships. It's important to really identify who can fulfill those needs, and who can fulfill those needs without the detriment to them, without harming them. And again, those are skills that we don't really have. I mean, that's why I go to therapy, but it's a really challenging thing. And the nastiest part of it is that it's embedded into our income and our careers and our livelihood. And that's the part that makes me go, So what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Laura, like you were saying, like there's such a close tie to the sense of identity. And I think that because this has been normalized for so long, it is who a person is. And, for me personally, I got to a point where I realized how little outside of work I had going on. And that required a lot of work on my end to actually get myself to a point where, like, there were hobbies and there was things outside of life that had nothing to do with work. And, it's been a process, but I think that's a step in the right direction because, when everything's about work and you have DJ, as you mentioned, kind of like this best form of yourself, and you're like, you're being the best person, and hey, let's have a quick shot. Or it's like bad mood Ariel, like, oh, let's have a quick shot, So I think, it's like, finding that balance and being able to have a little bit of a safe space for yourself that's not inside of work, so you can actually reflect on your own self and start asking why.
Yeah.
We also talk a lot about, and this is a recent phenomenon, this conversation about self-care and mindfulness and wellness in the industry. And I've been teaching empathy building workshops since earlier this year. And there's always a part of it that is centered around building your self-care toolkit. And what's so fascinating is that self-care is now a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we've all been conditioned to think that self-care is that really expensive bottle of champagne, or it's the night out with the girls, or it's a yoga retreat to Bali, or whatever it is. And when we present the notion that self-care could just be stopping to start breathing, like stop what you're doing and take a breath, and again, revisiting the concept of how trauma manifests in our physiology. And Resmaa Menakem's work about this has like changed my life, just generational trauma carried with us physically, no matter who you are. But I think it's really interesting because we talk a lot of fluff in this industry about self-care, and we still keep doing the same shit.
Yo.
We're like, oh my God, hashtag self-care. And like, that's cool. And there's like brands that are hosting, yoga classes and stuff like that. And that's a great start. That's a great start because it's getting the conversation going, but it's not actually solving problems, because people in this industry are not giving themselves, we are not taught how to give ourselves permission to be discerning. It's very difficult for me to have like a bird's eye view of how relationships should work in the industry, because I am highly skeptical of relationships. I'm the smiliest porcupine you've ever met. Like we can have a 2-hour conversation and you think you know me and I haven't let you in for shit. But learning about what a real relationship looks like that goes beyond, like there's a handful of people in this industry that I actually can express my feelings to, that I trust. But we aren't taught how to check in with our bodies and go, oh, I'm talking to this person. Do I feel tired after talking to them, or do I feel energized after talking to them? And that is mutually exclusive of like doing a bump or a shot. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's fake energy. That's plastic energy. And so we've started the conversation about self-care, but I think very few people actually know what that means. And self-care has nothing to do with what's on your Instagram and what cocktails you're banging out. Anybody can make a good cocktail, but like, what does self-care look and feel and sound like as you carry it through your conversations? And this is what I was coming back to. So sorry. The thing that blows people's minds is the fact that boundaries are self-care. Saying no is self-care. And you say that to somebody who is learning about their own self-care journey and they're like, boundaries are self-care? Yeah. Don't pick up the phone if you don't want to pick up the phone when that sales rep is calling. You don't have to. You don't owe people shit unless you have to pay your bill. That's a different story. But like, boundaries are
people something. Yeah.
I mean, we have logistics and like it is what it is, but boundaries are some of the healthiest relationship self-care that we can give ourselves. And that is to both faux friends and real friends. We have to say no to our real friends too.
100%.
Because
I think it helps you discern sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but like discern what those two relationships are. And that if you establish boundaries with someone and they don't want to respect them, like, great. Now now you know, like, great. I could you can just go to the back, but the people that actually respect it because they want you to thrive and foster as a person, like, that's a real friend.
One of the.
Go ahead, DJ. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, one of the ways that I, kind of talk to clients about that is I say, it is always okay in life to ask for what you need. That's always an okay thing. If there's something I need in life, it is okay to ask for. Sometimes the answer is going to be no. Sometimes the answer is going to be hell no. It might not be something somebody else could do. I just really wish I could see my dead great grandmother again. No, nobody can do that, right? But by asking for that need, what you do is you move past that spot where you just can't see, right? You're stuck at that spot where you start in your mind solving the answer, right? Maybe I can do this, maybe I can do that. You move from all of the pressure to fix that problem or solve it or whatever that might be to be on just you. to get some more information, right? And even if that person just says, you know, no, then that's great information about that person and whether I want them in my life and what skills and stuff that I might need, right? Maybe sometimes the person will say maybe, sometimes they'll say I can't do it, but I'm here for you, right? So yeah, I think I talk to people a lot about, like, you know, asking for those needs, right, or setting those, you know, and again, that's going to lean into setting those boundaries with, you know, I really want to have Sundays off. I know it's the day the guy shows up for the thing and the delivery, but the assistant manager is gonna have to do it, right? Then yeah, it's always okay to ask for them. Now, sometimes the answer is going to be no, and then, like you said, John, that's when I get to kind of use that information to reflect and say, well, does this align with who I want to be and where I want to be at, right? You know, do I want to be the six-figure pulling in person who's jet setting around the world but never gets to be at home? Do I want to be the person who's, you know, at my house and has my local bar and my local one that I go to all the time and I know everybody, right? Neither one is bad, but you know, you got to take the time to look and see where you're going and make sure that's your path. Um, that's going to lead to what you want to get to, right? Not just quote unquote success.
You know, I want to draw a little bit of a parallel, kind of a through line, if you will. Also around, like, I don't know if any of you have ever heard me talking about the how we have a hard time asking for help in our industry, and I am profoundly guilty of this. Like, I mean, look at the Healthy Poor Symposium, and it's like, and it's me being guilty of not, you know, asking for help in a lot of ways, but I know we have a hard time with it. And I think asking for help and identifying and stating our needs are the same thing. And boundaries is in there as well. Like, it's all a little ball of dough, you know? And the more we practice asking for help and the more we practice stating our needs, no matter how small, like, the more we are practiced with them, and it gets easier and easier, and it's not as scary to say no, you know. And it's also then not as scary when someone reacts poorly when you say no, that you can be like, cool, you know. So I think something that's actionable that I think people can leave with is start ask little micro asks for help and micro stating needs and seeing how people respond, you know. And you will learn, and and if you start small, you know, you will learn how that feels in your body. You can start to identify how that feels in your body, how your behavior changes after that happens, you know, increasing your emotional intelligence in that way. And then it'll be easier to discern, you know. But they're also, I mean, in terms of the organizational stuff that we were talking about, specifically what you were talking about, Ariel, um, you know, that sort of like workplace exploitation, y'all managers got to do some work to make that not happen. And that comes from leadership, that comes from management, that comes from organizational culture. You know, maybe that's Healthy Poor Symposium 2.0 is going to be about that. I don't know, but I think we should move into closing thoughts from everybody, because we're about to go into the next seminar is about oppressive workspaces. Like, I need to take a lap around my apartment before we do that one.
Couple heavy sessions in a row there.
Stating my needs. But yeah, let's closing thoughts.
Laura, if I can, I'm so sorry, just because there was a really good question dropped in the chat that both your most recent statement and DJ's most recent statement, I think, addresses, and I wanted to like tie that up in a bow. So John asked, if I'm entangled in what I thought are friendships with my industry friends, what are some tools I can use to discern what is toxic behavior and what is not? So John, that's such a good question. And I think—
Thank you for seeing that. I'm glad you saw that.
I'm always eyeballs on the chat. I think it's so important to take chunks of what DJ said and chunks of what Laura said, as it pertains especially to boundaries and the physical manifestation of feelings and stating needs, and start off with this permission structure, giving yourself permission to observe what happens when you are with these friends. If you are with these friends and the conversation is flowing about everything from politics to community to the environment to each other to feelings to care, you know, that strikes me as healthy, as organically healthy, as a group of people who genuinely care about each other and each other's well-being. If every time you are hanging out with these people, it is just drinks and it's complaining about work and it's sharing war stories. There's a time and a place for everything, and we all need to detox, especially after a long shift, especially in the middle of a global pandemic. But if that is the entirety of the makeup of your relationship, I would encourage you to pay attention to how that feels in your body and whether you feel like you have to work to spend time around these people. And whether you feel fulfilled when you are done spending time with these people. And only you can decide that. Nobody else can decide that for you. But just starting with giving yourself permission to observe how you are experiencing your time with them. And just because a relationship is toxic doesn't necessarily mean, or maybe toxic doesn't necessarily mean that the other person is horrible or this group of people are horrible and you should cut them out of your life. But it all comes back to boundaries. And it all comes back to being willing to identify what you need out of a relationship. And it might not be what you're getting right now, or it might be. It's up to you. So wanted to acknowledge that, and I'm
That's
done.
great. Thank you. That was really great because I totally missed it. Sorry, John. Bad moderator. Yeah. Let's see. Should we, anything else? Anyone want to say? You all are wonderful. Y'all feel good? How are y'all feeling? Good?
Yeah. Good. Oh, I'll say one thing. Just as we're talking about boundaries, it might be helpful too, is I always remind people that you know, good boundaries also aren't just all or nothing, black or white, right? I say all the time, a window is a great boundary, right? And I can have my window open. I can have the window closed. I can have the window closed and the curtains open, right? The curtains closed. I can have the window closed, the curtains closed, and it boarded up if a hurricane's coming, right? And also those boundaries aren't permanently stuck like that, right? There's going to be different seasons in life. There's going to be different things that come and go, right? And I'm going to maybe need to adjust my boundaries at times, right? Like Joanna said, it's taking into account, those other parts of myself, what's going on, right? And is this what I need for right now, right? Speak of people a lot, especially recently with social justice, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, politics, right? Of like, oh my God, that person in my family, oh, I can't deal with them anymore. That person who I thought was a friend, and I said, we don't necessarily have to like cut them out of our lives completely, right? But how do I find a place that is correct for me, right? Where I can say, yeah, I love you, Uncle John, that's great, but we're not going to talk about anything other over here because it's not going to be an equal fight, right? If you want to talk about it, not at Thanksgiving when you don't have your other three brothers and I'm just a little kid, maybe, right? So yeah, how do I? I did read the chat. Right. So how do I set those boundaries appropriately for myself? Right. They're not always going to look the same in every situation, right? In every single place or every single need, right? But how am I checking in to pay attention to what's the appropriate place for me, right? In this place. And again, right, if I close this screen and it's still getting water inside, I go, okay, well, maybe then I'll close the window as well, right? There's space for adjustment. One thing for return.
So there's some dope content coming through on this chat, but y'all, I gotta cut it. Oh, so this is what I'm thinking. I think that, let's see. So someone brought up secondary trauma for managers, which is so real. Relationship with regulars as family. So talking about the boundaries around guests. So y'all have given me some good content for the next round of Symposium. Stay tuned on that because those are definitely things like LK. I know you and I have definitely talked about that.
Yep.
So those are, I think, things that we will talk about. Yeah. Also, since it's kind of getting to the end of the night and the thing, 4 minutes. My email is laura@healthypoor.org. If you want to see more content like this, let me know. And if you have ideas of what you want to see, or, oh, I meant to say this at everyone. If I said something that you did not like, that did not sit well with you, and you have, you want to tell me, you are welcome to tell me. I am not, I think that all the panelists here will agree. Well, I was going to say we'll agree that I'm not perfect, but I think everyone else can agree that everyone's not perfect. We're all human beings and we all are, pushing to make this industry better, and there will be missteps along the way. And you know, the last thing that we want to do is create harm. So if you have feedback, please, 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 please reach out to me if you want, or tell somebody else to reach out to me, or, you know, send me an email, or I don't know, whatever. But yeah, if you want to see more content like this, please let me know, so that don't feel like I'm screaming into the void. Right. Anyway, I will let you all go. Thank you so much. The next seminar is going to be about oppressive workspaces and how it impacts our mental health. And when we talk about oppressive workspaces, we're talking about a whole bunch of kinds of oppression. So that's going to be another one that's not going to be 45 minutes. I said it's supposed to be, but it's not going to be. After that, though, we have a longer roundtable where all panelists are welcome to come back and you know, share their reflections of the day, some things that they learned, want to talk about. So that is at 7 o'clock. That's when I'll be drinking the wine. And yeah, thank you very much for the panelists, and thank you for everyone for joining. And I'll see you in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, do some self-care, Laura. It's been a busy day. Make sure you know, go take some deep breaths.
Remember
all that stuff you learned at C4. Fast, go to you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.